So before you start your plasma etchant or start using the machine, you're going to want to go into the back side of the lab, which is the hallway behind the hybrids lab, which houses a lot of the extra materials. You're going to open up the oxygen and the carbon dioxide tanks. You don't want to open this too much, just a couple turns left. You'll see the pressure gauges change. At 0, that means it's closed, upwards, and counting means it's open. This lever here, if you turn it right, it opens it a little bit, and this value will change according to the amount of pressure that's being put through this little tube here. This is the tube that plugs into the plasma treatment machine. And again, to close it, make sure it's all the way turned to the right. It's not too tight. You want to allow the next person to be able to open this. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a ceramic wafer. This one is already cut to the size to use inside of the machine. Right now I am plasma treating mylar. You might use plasma treat silicone wafers or glass wafers like this one. Whatever it is, it's got to fit within the bounds of this white edge here. The reason for that is because the chamber is pretty skinny. You might be able to get away with something that's the same size as the middle of the chamber, but it gets a little more difficult the larger it is. You're going to take the lid, have the tubing go on your left side, align it with the opening of the pump chamber. You're going to power on the plasma cleaner, and then you're going to turn the pump on. Now, it might be a little hard to hear me, but the next thing you're going to do is going to turn that black valve that I'm pointing at with my thumb. You're going to slowly turn it up and continue to turn it until it's perpendicular with this long tube here. What that's going to do is it's going to seal off the opening, and you should actually turn this on before you start anything else as well. Make sure that this is on. You're going to wait until this says 150 or close to 150 millitor. That tells you that that chamber has been vacuumed out enough for you to start the process. Make sure that this is on the off. Don't turn this on yet. And then make sure that these two valves are completely at 0. This one is a CO2 valve, and this one is an O2 valve. Turning it right closes the valves, turning it left opens up the valves. There are 2 small black spheres inside of the chambers here that tell you exactly what level of gas is going into the chamber. If for any reason this is not reading at 150 and it's stuck at 1 mTOR, make sure that these are closed, but do not over tighten them, because then if you do, the threads on the inside of these fasteners are going to get loose, and then we can't really control it anymore. The other thing is that sometimes this is a little sensitive, so just pushing it in might return whatever sensor is in here to a readable value. So this might jump from 1 to suddenly 500 or something like that. Just be very gentle with this. Don't shove it in or just kind of lightly touch it. It might just be dislocated a little bit or not fully plugged in. Waiting for it to drop to 150 could take about 2 to 3 minutes, so just be patient. So it does not have to be exactly 150. You can start pumping in oxygen now, but if you would like it to be exact, you can wait longer. I am going to start pumping in now just to go through the instructions. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the oxygen valve and then I'm going to open it up all the way. So I'm going to watch this little sphere move from the bottom all the way to the top to its maximum value. Once it's there, I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes and just let it sit.
So one thing I did want to point out in the video before it gets to the next section, in prepping the video to show you the tanks and how to open them and where they are, I didn't realize that I never had reopened the tanks before the start of the video. So you'll actually see me not understand why the sphere goes up and then goes back down inside the video. The reason that it does go up in the first place is because the valve is opening the line to the oxygen, and whatever oxygen was remaining in that tubing is what is getting used. You'll see the sphere go down, and that's because the oxygen is using up whatever is remaining. So there was a little bit of pure oxygen exposure, but then you'll see me go through some troubleshooting mechanisms or some options to use if for whatever reason the oxygen is not connected properly, or if it is not giving you the oxygen amount that you expect it to do.
By this time, you might see the pressure change a little bit or level out. Right now, it seems to be leveling at 160. It might continue to drop, but by the time you open up and let in the oxygen, you're going to see the pressure change a little bit as a reflection of this. So this sphere is actually supposed to go all the way to the top. It's not doing that. If for whatever reason the oxygen is not working, you can flood it with CO2 as well. It will change the surface ionization that you're working with. So I'm going to try CO2 for right now, just to show the process of it, which is not turning on. Well, I don't exactly know what's happening. It was working like 2 seconds or 2 minutes ago in a previous test. There we go. Wonder if it's just not. No, never mind. So there is some oxygen going in. It's not going in all the way, or it's leaking out. Something's happening. So I'm just going to close this off. Again, don't close it too tight. If for whatever reason that starts to happen, you can flood the chamber with atmospheric oxygen, which basically you just open this up very slightly by turning it left, just enough to start hearing the air get flooded in, and then you'll also see the pressure change as well. It'll jump up to 1. You really don't want to do that for more than 30 seconds. I did it for a couple of seconds, but I'm going to let it come back down to about 150. Typically what would happen is you would flood this at maximum for 2 minutes, and then you would bring it down to 3 SCCM and another 2 minutes. Once that's done, you completely close the valve. Again, don't over tighten it. And then what you're going to do next is either come to either side of the opening of the plasma treatment machine. You have a graded section there. And what's going to happen is when I turn the plasma treatment on, this section is going to turn kind of a purplish hue. You're going to see a purple light. Once I flooded it for 1 minute or 2 minutes, what I'm going to do is set this to medium. Then I'm going to look at the side and see if I see a purple light. If I do, I'm going to set a timer for 45 seconds. If you come to the side, you can see kind of purple blue light. The moment that you see that light, you turn on the timer for 45 seconds. So far, I've had it running for 20. And you might see the pressure change. That's not an issue, so long as you've had it flooded appropriately. In the previous steps, you should be fine. So my timer's gone off. I'm going to turn this all the way off to 0. Then I'm going to turn off this one, turn off the pump, and turn the power off. So you have the vacuum is still pulling the lid of the chamber. You don't want to open this up right away, because what's going to happen is if you have a silicone wafer or an untaped material in that chamber, it's going to shoot it and pull it to the back. And depending on how sensitive or how fragile your material is, it could be completely destroyed. What you're going to do is you're going to turn this black lever perpendicular very slowly. Once you start to hear the air, you're going to modulate how wide this opening is by flipping it back and forth. You want to be able to control the amount of air that's coming out. You don't want it to go too fast, because then your object is either going to shoot back or shoot forward, and it could possibly break. In my case, I have Mylar, so I'm not too worried about it, but if you have a silicone wafer or a glass slide, sensitive, you don't want to open it up too fast. What you're going to do next is take a pair of tweezers, pull out your sample, and immediately put it into some kind of protective container with a top and bottom, preferably vacuum sealed if you can, just to protect the surface of the item that you just treated. But if you don't, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Just note that plasma treatment does decrease in intensity over time. So the first thing you want to do is take a contact angle of your sample untreated. Take a contact angle of your sample immediately after being treated, and then follow up maybe an hour or two later, or even a day or two, or a week or two, just to see if the treatment still holds after a long period of time. This is especially important if, for whatever reason, the oxygen flow chamber is not working and you have to expose it to atmospheric oxygen. The atmospheric oxygen might not give you as good of a contact angle or as good of a treatment as using the pure oxygen here.